What's up, everybody? It's the Everyday Dad. I hope you're having a fantastic day today. We've been talking for it for about a week. It's time to get to it. Time to start messing around. Let's review the Hero 6 Black. What I want you to keep in mind while I'm doing this review is, why would you buy this? Seriously. Stop, and as you see the video, I really want you to stop and think, why would I buy this? Let's get to it. The GoPro Hero 6 is the successor to the GoPro Hero 5 throne, but you might not necessarily notice that as the 6 looks exactly like the 5. The only physical difference between the two being this teeny tiny little number 6 on the side. On a positive side, all of your Hero 5's accessories will work with the Hero 6, but you gotta stop and consider that that little number 6 is gonna cost you $100 extra. The GoPro Hero 6 Black is a hefty $499. It is waterproof without a case up to 10 meters. However, if you do need a little more than that, there is a waterproof accessory case that you can get for $50 that will take your waterproofing down to 60 meters. It has a USB Type-C connection and a micro HDMI out. The lens cover is removable in case of scratches, and it is very easy to replace. This is something that I really like about this camera is you don't really have to worry so much about the lens because it's got that easy to replace lens cover on top of it. It also comes with a 1220 milliamp hour battery. On the back, it has a 2-inch touchscreen that is very crisp and easy to use. You can change all of the camera settings from the screen, and this is something that GoPro seriously wins on. The way that they have set up their ecosystem on the back of this camera, it really is the easiest and best action camera to use. I gotta give it to GoPro on this one. The main new features really included with this camera are the ability to film in 4K 60 frames per second and the new, air quotes, less crop electronic image stabilization. Now, the setting itself says it only crops the image about 5%. However, if you watch Iphondo, and I'm a huge fan of his reviews, I'll leave a link to his GoPro Hero 6 review in the description below. When he did the test, he actually found out that it crops at about 12%, not 5%, so you are giving up a hefty chunk of your image to use the stabilization. Also, you can turn on the Pro 2 setting here on the back to get a lot more control over your video and your photos. It can shoot 4K video up to 60 frames per second, and it can also do 1080p up to 240 frames per second. That's crazy. That will allow you to get all sorts of super smooth slow motion, and we all like slow motion, especially when it comes to action cameras. Okay, so here's the real big difference between the Hero 5 and the Hero 6. The Hero 6 comes built with GoPro's homemade GP1 processing system. This is very big for them as they're moving away from their third-party Annabelle processor on the inside and going to their own homegrown solution. This should give GoPro all sorts of control over the firmware that's released for the camera, and it should also give them the ability to do anything they want. So if the GoPro Hero 6 takes off, it is totally GoPro's credit. But if it really fails, they've got nobody to blame because they're the ones that built the processor on the inside. Now that we got those boring specs out of the way that nobody really cares about unless you're a super camera geek, I'm a super camera geek. Now I'm gonna break it down into what I consider the three pillars of action. Action. That's what I call it for action cameras. So number one is video. Obviously, for one of the most expensive action cameras on the market, the video quality needs to be excellent. And I'm happy to say that the GoPro Hero 6 does produce a very nice, crisp image when used in an outdoor setting. When compared to my Sony FDR-X3000, you can definitely tell the GoPro put a ton of effort into the footage that would come out of this camera, and it does look really nice. When used in wide angle, there is a bit of fisheye distortion, but that really happens on all action cameras. When you get a super wide field of view, you're gonna get some distortion, and the GoPro does have some of that. Number two on the pillars of action, and probably the most important one when it comes to me, is stabilization. This may not be as high on other people's priority list, but I abhor, yes, I looked up the strongest word I could find, I abhor shaky footage. It is the worst thing when I've just gotten done recording something, I look and I can't use the footage because of how shaky it is. The GoPro Hero 6 Black has electronic image stabilization where they, like I already said, they crop some of the image to give you your stability, and it does a very, very good job of smoothing out the footage. Honestly, the electronic image stabilization on the GoPro Hero 6 Black is probably the best electronic image stabilization I've ever seen. it is seriously fantastic. However, to achieve that stability, it does crop a bit of the footage, and like we said earlier, if you check out the link to Iphondo's review in below, it's about 12%, not 5%. Ease of use. Action cameras need to be quick and they need to be easy. In my opinion, if you truly want more control over a video or photo, you'll be using a different kind of camera. So I treat these cameras like durable point and shoots. When done right, the thought of using the camera should fade away, and it really should just be you recording what you want to record, and the equipment just goes with you. You shouldn't have to think about it. It should just be an extension of yourself. And it should be fast enough that you won't miss anything during crucial moments. I do think that the GoPro Hero 6 is relatively easy to use as designed, and like I said, that LCD screen makes it so much easier to not only frame shots, but to change settings on the fly, and GoPro seriously has nailed this down. I mean, they really have. Full disclosure, I have had some serious issues with the GoPro Hero 6 Black where it didn't want to save my footage after like a 15 or 20 minute session. I'd stop using it and it would start saying like saving, and it would just freeze there. And this is actually my second GoPro Hero 6. I returned the first one for those issues, and I've still had it happen to me once on this camera, so it is easy to use, but I'm still trying to find out. Hopefully there will be a firmware update where you don't have to worry about whether you're actually going to get the footage you thought you got. Okay, so there are some honorable mentions that I want to mention outside of the 3 pillars of action. Number 1, audio. I'm throwing this in as a secondary reason because while audio is always important when making videos, I almost never use the audio from my action cameras. When I do use the audio, however, like on my Sony FDR X3000, seriously, what a terrible name, Sony. Come up with something better, like the Everyday Dad camera. I will use the included 3.5mm microphone in and use a Rode Video Micro to turn it into a vlogging monster machine. However, as the GoPro is waterproof without a case, the audio is pretty warbled. It's not unusable, but I wouldn't use it as my primary audio recorder unless absolutely necessary. One of the biggest negatives about the GoPro is you need a huge $50 accessory to be able to have a 3.5mm audio jack, which is super unfortunate because it really kind of crushes some of the awesome things that this does. So this is an audio test of the 2 action cameras. This is the audio out of the Sony FDR X3000. It's got that nice front-facing microphone. It should be really good. And this is the audio out of the GoPro Hero 6 Black. It is in kind of a waterproof case, and none of the microphones are facing me, so it's probably sounding pretty muffled right now. Durability. This is not one of the pillars of action because, as we've seen, not durable action cameras can work if you get a case, but durability is important. And I think it is. If it can't take a hit, I won't take it with me as I drop my cameras all the time. The GoPro feels substantial and can absolutely take a little punishment. The included case also ensures that if you were to drop it or have any other kinds of accidental damage, you have a good chance of being able to use this camera again to keep filming. But at the end of the day, is this camera really worth the extra $100 to upgrade if you already have a Hero 5, or is it worth $500 if you're trying to get into the GoPro ecosystem? If you must have 4K 60 and you must have a GoPro, well then yeah, you have to get the GoPro Hero 6 Black. It's the only GoPro that does 4K 60. So you kind of need that. If you only need 4K 60 frames per second and you don't necessarily need a GoPro, there are other cheaper options on the market. I mean, there seriously are. The Yi 4K Plus does 4K 60. The Yi 4K Plus also does 4K 60 frames per second and costs $200 less than the GoPro Hero 6 Black. And if you don't need 4K 60 and also want a GoPro, I think the GoPro Hero 5 Black would be a strong contender for what you would need in an action camera. There's no need to really spend the extra $100 if you don't need the 4K 60 frames per second. Honestly, I think the GoPro Hero 6 is a decent, if overpriced, camera. It has a lot of features that I look for in action cameras. It's super easy to use. It feels very durable. It captures good video quality. It's super easy to use. It's very durable. The stabilization is fantastic. But it's really expensive, and the one thing when it comes to GoPro, the reason I got this camera in the first place was GoPro's kind of like the Apple of the action camera world. If you want accessories, you kind of have to go with the GoPro. So if I want to use a gimbal, or I want some kind of way to turn off the stabilization and get smooth footage so that I can get the whole 4K image, I have to go with GoPro because all of the accessories work with GoPro and its clone, so you're kind of stuck in that regards. So much as I really wanted to fall in love, get married, have kids, grow old together with this camera. It's not going to replace my Sony FDR-X 3000. It's great, but you need to think back to the beginning of the video and is this $500 camera really worth it to you? Well, hey everybody, if you like what you saw, click that subscribe button down below. We do YouTube gear or specialty tech gear reviews every Wednesday at 12 p.m. Eastern. Well, hey, I'm the Everyday Dad, and if I can figure out that this camera's pretty great, but it's not for me, you can figure it out. Thanks for watching.